Vince Gill is the voice that once brought millions to tears with "Go Rest High on That Mountain."
Go rest high on that mountain.
He's a giant in country music, a quiet storm of talent and humility, and the kind of person who built a legacy on truth, never showboating, never chasing headlines. Yet for decades, whispers followed him, rumors about his private life, speculation about his career, and questions about the real Vince Gill beneath the polite, smiling surface.
There's still, going to have a lot of folks that say no Glenn, no Eagles, and that's fair. They can.
Now, at 67, Vince is finally speaking out about the moments that shaped him, the tragedies he carried in silence, and the choices that shocked even his closest fans. This isn't just a story about a singer. It's about a boy shaped by heartbreak, a man tested by scandal, and an artist who, late in life, is finally ready to reveal what really happened behind the curtain. But behind every success was a wound, and behind every headline was a story nobody knew.
And in those 4 years, what he did is unbelievable.
Today, we're going deep, because what Vince Gill finally confirmed at 67 doesn't just change the narrative. It changes how we understand the music, the rumors, and the man himself. Before the sold-out stadiums, before the Grammys, before he'd become a household name, Vince Gill was a skinny kid with a guitar growing up in Norman, Oklahoma. His childhood looked ordinary from the outside. Family dinners, school days, the easy comfort of a loving home. His dad, J. Stanley Gill, was a federal judge with a secret passion for music. Evenings in the Gill house often meant impromptu jams, his father's rough-hewn voice blending with Vince's tentative picking. Music was more than just a pastime. It was a language of connection, a way to communicate when words failed. But life can change in a single moment. For Vince, that moment came with a late-night phone call, the kind that makes everything before it feel like a dream. His older half-brother, Bob, had been in a devastating car accident. Bob, who'd been the wild one, the fearless older brother, was suddenly fighting for his life in a coma. 3 months passed in agonizing limbo. When Bob finally woke up, the world was forever altered. The once vibrant, teasing brother was trapped inside a body that would never again let him speak, run, or even care for himself. Vince, only 11 at the time, watched his parents, especially his mother, try to navigate the grief of having a living son who was no longer really there. The silence at home grew heavy, broken only by the music Vince clung to for solace.
Everybody wants a little piece of my time.
That wound never healed. Instead, it seeped into everything he'd become. For the next 25 years, Bob remained locked in that liminal state before passing away in 1993. Ironically, the same year Vince released his Christmas album, Let There Be Peace on Earth. On that album, the song It Won't Be the Same This Year became an anthem of longing for those lost, not just in death, but in life. Vince has since admitted that every time he sings it, he's right back in that hospital room, a child desperate for things to go back to normal. That raw, unfiltered emotion would go on to define his songwriting and set him apart from the slick, manufactured hits dominating country radio. But this was just the beginning of his story. For Vince Gill, pain was never just a private cross to bear, it was the seed of a new kind of honesty in country music. And what came next would demand even more from him. By the late 1980s, Nashville was a city obsessed with hits, and Vince Gill was one of those guys everyone in the industry admired, but few in the audience could pick out of a crowd. He'd been a sideman, a session player, and even fronted Pure Prairie League for a while, but stardom remained just out of reach. 2 solo albums on RCA had fizzled. The critics cheered, the charts shrugged. As his peers moved on to TV appearances and endorsement deals, Vince sometimes found himself questioning his path. Was this all there was? That's when fate, in the form of Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, came calling. At that point, Dire Straits was at their commercial peak. Brothers in Arms had sold millions, and the band was packing out arenas worldwide. Knopfler wasn't offering Vince a guest spot or a quick session gig. He wanted Vince Gill as a full-fledged member of the band, a ticket to rock stardom, global fame, and a life few country boys from Oklahoma could even imagine. For most musicians, that offer would be impossible to refuse.
He epitomized everything I wanted.
And Vince was tempted. He knew what it meant. The pay, the crowds, the chance to be seen by millions who might never hear a country record, but something held him back. In later interviews, Vince would say, "I knew if I went down that road, I'd never come back. I wouldn't be me anymore." He wanted to tell his own stories, to find out if his own voice was enough. Turning down dire straits wasn't just a career gamble, it was a leap of faith in his own soul. For a while, it looked like he'd made a mistake. The gigs got smaller, the money got tighter. He watched from the side of the stage as friends he'd backed up became headliners. But then, in one of those turns that feel scripted by fate, Vince released "When I Call Your Name." The song's gentle ache and understated power caught the world's attention.
And I called your name.
Suddenly, Vince Gill was more than just a musician's musician. He was a star, and the Grammy he won for the title track didn't just vindicate his decision, it put him on the path to becoming one of country music's most respected voices. The lesson was clear but hardly easy. The shortest route to success isn't always the right one. For Vince, carving his own path was about more than ego. It was about survival. But just as his star began to rise, new challenges and new rumors started circling. If there's one chapter in Vince Gill's life that sparked more whispers and judgment than any other, it was his relationship with Amy Grant. When they first met in 1993, filming a Christmas special in Tulsa, both were stars in their own right, Vince, the country crooner with a gentle heart, and Amy, the reigning queen of Christian pop. To the outside world, their chemistry was instant and obvious. But behind the scenes, the story was far more complicated. Both were married at the time, Vince to Janice Oliver, Amy to Gary Chapman. The connections were undeniable, but both have said they tried to honor their vows, holding their feelings at bay even as they grew closer through repeated collaborations. Fans, however, were quick to suspect more. Every duet, every lingering glance was picked apart by tabloids hungry for a scandal. The rumors only grew when Vince and Janice divorced in 1997, followed by Amy and Gary's separation 2 years later. The timing didn't help. Neither did the fact that both artists seemed so genuinely tormented by the choices they'd had to make. The backlash was swift and, in some circles, merciless. Amy, with her carefully cultivated image of faith and family, faced boycotts, radio bans, and angry letters from once devoted fans. Vince's pain was less public, but just as real. What hurt the most, he later confessed, was that people assumed the worst. We weren't reckless. We were human. For years, they tried to navigate a world that wanted to see their romance as proof of failure, not perseverance. When they finally married in 2000, the ceremony was small, just family and a handful of friends gathered in the backyard of Vince's home outside Nashville. Amy wore a simple dress. Vince stood beside her, not as a superstar or a lightning rod for controversy, but as a man who'd waited for the right moment. For all the noise, the real story was always about two people who found solace in each other after years of pain. The world saw a scandal. Vince and Amy saw survival. But even as they built a new life together, the rumors never fully faded, and Vince would have to decide whether to address them or let his music do the talking. In the world of American rock, few bands carry the weight of the Eagles. When Glenn Frey died in 2016, most fans assumed the group would never perform again. Don Henley made it clear, without Glenn, the band had lost its anchor. Yet, in a move nobody predicted, Vince Gill was asked to step in. For some, it seemed out of left field. For Vince, it was a surreal call that brought his career full circle. The truth is, the connections between Vince and the Eagles ran deep. Back in the 1980s, he and Glenn Frey shared the same manager, Larry Fitzgerald. Vince had long admired the band, performing Eagles songs in tribute shows and covering I Can't Tell You Why in his own concerts. So when Irving Azoff, the Eagles' legendary manager, called with an invitation, Vince didn't hesitate. "When do we leave?" he reportedly answered. But stepping into Glenn Frey's shoes wasn't about imitation. Vince spent weeks learning harmonies, practicing guitar licks, and immersing himself in the Eagles' catalog, determined to honor the music rather than put his own stamp on it. On stage with Glenn's son Deacon Frey, Vince brought a quiet reverence to every performance. The fans, more than 50,000 strong at Dodger Stadium, responded with tears and standing ovations. Even Don Henley, known for his high standards, admitted he knows how to be in a band. Still, the critics circled. Some die-hard fans bristled at a country singer invading a rock institution. Rumors swirled that the Eagles had become a tribute act and that Vince was just a hired hand. Vince, as usual, refused to take the bait. "I understand it, but for me, it's about honoring Glenn and keeping this music alive for people who love it." His willingness to let the music, not the critics, define his role is part of what makes Vince Gill so rare. He's never chased approval, only authenticity. The reinvention was more than just a career move. It proved that, even late in life, Vince was willing to take risks, face backlash, and prove the doubters wrong, one song at a time. While the world was watching Vince redefine himself on stage, few knew what he was facing at home. In 2020, a simple doctor's suggestion changed everything. During a routine checkup, Vince's doctor mentioned Amy should get evaluated as well. That casual comment led to the discovery of a rare congenital heart defect, partial anomalous pulmonary venous return. Amy would need open-heart surgery, and soon. The operation was a success, but the recovery was long and grueling, made even harder by the isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic. Hospital rules kept Vince away from Amy's bedside for days at a time, leaving him helpless to do anything but wait. When finally allowed in, he was by her side, holding her hand, promising she wouldn't face it alone. "He was there holding me up, never letting me feel alone," Amy would later say. But the trials didn't end there. In July 2022, Amy suffered a traumatic brain injury after falling off her bike in Nashville. She was unconscious for several minutes and faced months of recovery, memory loss, balance issues, lingering pain. Vince immediately canceled concerts to stay by her side, telling fans, "No stage matters more than seeing her well again." The old song, "When My Amy Prays," written years earlier, took on a new meaning, a testament to faith, resilience, and the kind of devotion that goes deeper than any lyric. These private battles never made the front page, but they revealed the core of Vince Gill, a man who puts love and loyalty above fame. Through illness, heartbreak, and the quiet tests that never make the tabloids, Vince stood steady. It's the kind of strength you can't fake, and the kind of story you only hear if you're willing to look past the rumors. With shelves full of awards and more hits than most artists could ever dream of, you'd think Vince Gill would be content to coast. But at 67, he's still restless. He's not writing songs to climb the charts. He's writing because the stories still need telling. "I'm writing the best songs of my life now," he said in a 2023 interview. But they're not the ones that will top the charts. They're the ones that matter. Take Forever Changed, a haunting ballad from 2019, inspired by the real-life pain of childhood abuse, not his own, but told with such empathy and vulnerability that listeners everywhere felt less alone. Vince has always been honest, but age has given him a new freedom to tackle the hard subjects, to speak up about things that most would shy away from. His songwriting is a mirror, sometimes gentle, sometimes painfully direct, but always truthful. And still, the rumors swirl. Is Vince Gill retiring? Are there cracks in his marriage to Amy? Is he sick or just slowing down? Vince finally addressed these questions head on. He's not retiring. He's not stepping away. "I'm not chasing my past. I'm writing my truth in the present." He's turned down lucrative offers, chosen collaboration over competition, and refused to let commercial trends dictate his art. The real rumor that's finally been confirmed? Vince Gill is exactly who he appears to be, imperfect, honest, scarred, and still searching for meaning. He's made peace with his past, owned his mistakes, and found redemption not in fame, but in family, forgiveness, and the music that continues to heal others as much as it heals him. In the end, Vince Gill's story isn't just about records sold, awards won, or rumors addressed. It's about a life lived in full view, heartbreaks endured, scandals survived, choices made for the right reasons instead of the easy ones. At 67, Vince Gill has nothing left to hide, and what he's finally revealed is more powerful than any headline. His journey from a small-town boy haunted by family tragedy to a global icon unafraid to bare his soul is a lesson in humility, resilience, and the quiet kind of courage that defines true greatness. Through every rumor, every challenge, every reinvention, Vince Gill has chosen to speak his truth, and in doing so has given the rest of us permission to do the same. Which Vince Gill song has meant the most to you, fellow beautiful listener? Let us know in the comments. And if this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more untold stories from the heart of music.